guess the joke is on me. You're not Batman after all.
Batman Mask of the Phantasm is one of the greatest animated DC movies ever, and I'd say just one of the best comic book movies in general. It's a tale of love and tragedy, full of emotional moments and incredible voice acting, and it's about time I deep dive into the film. So without further ado, first, I just want to touch on the opening credits because I think they are pretty memorable. They are just going over some CGI animation of buildings in Gotham, but it's different than anything you had seen in the show itself. Also, the score is fantastic. One of the best Batman scores out there if you ask me, especially the main score of the movie, but every music piece throughout puts you into Batman's world and complements the film extremely well. Once the opening credits are over, the movie jumps right into the action with Batman busting a drug meet. Chucky Saul flees the scene while Batman is taking out the rest of his men. He's then confronted by the Phantasm in a parking lot, and we get the now famous catchphrase, "Your angel of death awaits." Chucky actually manages to get to his car and escape the Phantasm, but he gets greedy and goes back to try to end them. The Phantasm jumps out of the way, and Chucky Saul goes flying off a parking lot floor. Batman's too late. The Phantasm has taken their first victim. The second victim of the Phantasm is Buzz Bronski. This death takes place at a graveyard, and his death is rather brutal. A whole statue falls onto him whilst he's in a grave. Batman shows up after this time to do some detective work, and given this is the cemetery his parents are buried in, he takes a moment to pay his respects, but to his surprise, the woman he was once in love with, Andrea Beaumont, is back in Gotham. She's there paying respects to her mother. Obviously a very similar scene to the flashback scene earlier in the film, except this is Batman, not Bruce. And sure, they are the same person, but Andrea was the one person who could have kept Bruce from donning the cape and cowl. And now that I'm to this point, I'm going to say that this is obviously a spoiler review. The movie's almost 30 years old. If you haven't seen it or don't know anything of it, this is the time to leave and go watch the movie. Andrea is an integral piece to the story, and now that I've got the warning out of the way, I'll be referring to the Phantasm as a she going forward.
Your angel of death awaits.
Before I get into the flashback scenes, I want to touch on the fact that Gotham is mistaking the Phantasm for Batman. This isn't a new idea or anything, it just adds an entirely different layer to this film. It's a story about hope, heartbreak, and destiny, but also trust. I love that Gordon is the one cop that knows the Phantasm isn't Batman, and he's not gonna go after him. He says himself, Batman doesn't kill, and this version of the character, like many others, doesn't. There's also several lines between Alfred and Bruce that hit you right in the feels. I especially love where Alfred is telling Bruce that he always fears that he could become that which he fights against. Every time Bruce goes out, he stares into an abyss, and Alfred is grateful that Bruce has not fallen in.
You walk the edge of that abyss every night, but you haven't fallen in, and I thank heaven for that.
Now let's get into the flashback, the events that tie everything together and the heart of the movie. Bruce is on the path to becoming Batman, but he meets his last chance to not in Andrea. He falls in love and even asks her to marry him. She tells him yes, and it seems everything is looking up, but then tragedy strikes. Andrea and her father have to skip town to avoid any more trouble with the mob, so she sends the wedding ring back to Bruce along with a letter saying she isn't ready. This is absolutely heartbreaking, but it also gives us one of the most iconic scenes in any Batman movie, Bruce donning the cape and cowl for the first time, and the absolute shock on Alfred's face tells you it all. There's no going back now, Bruce is Batman, and nothing's going to keep him from fulfilling his promise. There's a lot of strong emotional moments in this film, and a lot of it is found in the flashbacks. Bruce talking to his parents at their grave, telling them he didn't count on being happy, asking them if it's okay, he needs it to be okay, and Andrea tells him it is, maybe they sent her. And all you want for Bruce is for it to be okay. You want him to be happy, even though you know how it ends. You can't help but want it to end differently.
But I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy.
Now, maybe the most important set piece in the film is the world of the future. In the past, we see that this is where Bruce found the design for the Batmobile. In the present, it is abandoned and run down, being used as a hideout for the Joker. I know there are several people, including myself, that consider Joker to be the main villain of this movie, but he doesn't show up until 37 minutes in. Yes, technically he appears in the flashback before that time, but he has zero dialogue. In a later flashback scene, we discover Joker was the one who killed Andrea's father, and this kind of gets my head turning a little because of these events with the mob. Bruce couldn't marry Andrea and had to become Batman. So in a way, the Joker and the rest of the mob helped create Batman, and I know if the Clown Prince of Crime knew that, it put an even bigger smile on his face. The last two pieces of all this I've yet to mention are Salvatore Valestra, who was the leader and the one who had Andrea's father killed. He thinks that Batman is after him, so he goes to the man he had do the killing, the Joker. And this interaction between the two was a magnificent intro for Joker. Mark Hamill does some of his best voice work, maybe even his best, in Mask of the Phantasm. He has a range of emotions and hides the sadistic thoughts going through his mind pretty well from Sal. I also love when Joker is talking about Batman killing and just says, "Wouldn't it be great if I pushed him off the deep end?" This entire interaction just lets you know who this version of the Joker is. It encapsulates him to a T.
Don't touch me, old man. I don't know where you've been.
Later on, the Phantasm comes to confront Valestra only to find his smiling corpse sitting in a chair with a camera attached. The Joker is the only one who knows there is for sure a new face in Gotham now. Batman has done none of the things they are accusing him of. Moments like this just really show how intelligent the Joker is. He may be insane, but he's never dumb. A bomb is set to go off, but the Phantasm escapes just in time. Now, the second unmentioned piece of the story is Arthur Reeves, who is now a councilman in Gotham. He's also somewhat of a love interest to Andrea. Not really though, because even when they are out on dates, it's obvious she's still more interested in Bruce. The Joker gets his hands on Arthur before anyone else can though, so he's hospitalized with uncontrollable laughter. Batman comes in to interrogate him, and something about this scene is just eerie, telling that this guy is scared out of his mind because Batman is in his face, not in the most pleasant mood, but also hearing this uncontrollable laugh from time to time and seeing the tears in his eyes. This guy was a piece of shit and he deserved what he got. And I say he deserved what he got because the information Batman gets is that Arthur had close connections to Carl, Andrea's father, and when he wouldn't pay Arthur the money he wanted, Arthur sold him out to the mob, so the only reason Andrea's father bit the bullet was this absolute dickhead. Now back to Andrea and Bruce. There is a scene between the two in present day where she puts Bruce down. Batman is questioning where her father is and asks if she's still following his orders. This was before the scene I was talking about previously. Batman wasn't yet aware that Carl Beaumont is deceased. But Andrea's response to Batman's questions, especially the taking orders from her father one, is a line that digs deep.
The way I see it, the only one in this room controlled by his parents is you.
Now let's get into the chase sequence. What starts out as a chase between the Phantasm and Batman soon turns into one between the GCPD and Batman. The Phantasm vanishes as she does, which is something I haven't even talked about, but if there is any problem with this movie, it would be the Phantasm's abilities. It's never really explained how they work, how she suddenly just disappears. She just does, which I'm fine with. I don't really need it to be explained because it's not what the movie is about. It could be magic, it could be illusions, which is where my mind leans to. Now that we got that out of the way, the chase scene between Batman and the GCPD. This is one of the best and most memorable chase scenes in anything Batman to me. Batman is outnumbered, outgunned, and gets injured during it. All he has to depend on is his wit. He takes off his cape and cowl and puts it on a sawhorse, which he sends toward the fire on his grapple while he runs an escape route. The cops annihilate the cape and cowl, and I think this is actually a very strong silent character moment for Harvey Bullock. He has a look of shock and regret on his face when he thinks they've killed Batman. Then he goes back into pursuit mode once they realize it's just part of the costume and none of the man. But that little moment showed a lot about his character. Bruce does manage to escape, but only because Andrea shows up to rescue him. There's another scene of Joker trying to blow the Phantasm up, but this time it's Batman and not Andrea, so Joker is unknowingly trying to kill Batman right here with an exploding miniature plane. The plane of the future. And to avoid that, Batman absolutely yeets a batarang like 20 yards, yet he still catches some of the explosion and goes flying back against a wall. But ducks to the ground to avoid all the glass and shrapnel from the explosion, so he's mostly fine. He got more beat up by the GCPD. But I really like that he ducked to the ground to avoid all the glass and shrapnel, because that's just something producers and writers, animators on this show know. They know to show and not tell a lot of the time, which is what they're doing here. Batman is extremely intelligent. Of course he would do that. They showed us, not told us. And that's better a lot of the time. The Phantasm goes to confront her final victim and the Joker, but he's got it all figured out. He knows Andrea is the Phantasm, which we figured out while he was on the phone with Batman, who he thought was Andrea, of course referring to the Phantasm as Toots.
But I can blow smoke too, Toots.
It doesn't take long at all for a fight to break out, and it's pretty back and forth, but Joker takes it to the outside of the park and quickly gains the upper hand. Let's not forget this is the world of the future, or it was at least. He has Andrea dead to rights, sucking her into a fan, but Batman finally gets his big hero moment here, coming in on his bat cycle and sacrificing it to the fan in order to save Andrea. After Batman arrives and saves her, there's another deep talk between the two on the topic of vengeance. Andrea says she doesn't know if what she's doing is right or even sane, but it's all she has left, which I feel like a lot of people can understand that on some level. We all have something that we feel gives us purpose, or are at least in pursuit of that thing that does. Batman asks her what vengeance will solve, and she responds with, "If anyone knows the answer to that, Bruce, it's you." She just flips the table on him a lot in this film. Just every exchange they have, she's just like, if anyone knows the answer, it's you, Bruce. But she's never entirely wrong. There are a lot of parallels between the Phantasm and Batman, from the look to the motive. The only real big difference is Batman doesn't kill. During this conversation, the Joker had gotten away, but he's never too far, so Batman goes after him, and of course Joker wants him to. This movie gives us a Godzilla-esque fight between the two.
Joker.
Which I imagine hadn't been done before, but with all the comics in the world, maybe it was done before 1993, I'm not sure. They are fighting on a miniature build of Gotham towering over what does look like real buildings. It was a really fun and unique idea I'm glad they incorporated into the movie. Batman is just kind of getting his ass handed to him by Joker in the beginning, which this is the Joker's arena, so it makes sense. Once he gets enough distance from the Dark Knight, Joker tries escaping on a jetpack. Batman bolts in the direction of a statue to have high enough ground to stop him, and it all culminates with Batman attempting to drag Joker back to the ground. All throughout, any exchange with Joker has been great in this movie, with Sal, Arthur, and the Phantasm. But once he confronts Batman, there's just a different energy. Their chemistry is unmatched, and it shows in the scene. Joker is telling Batman to let go or they'll both die, and Batman's response is, whatever it takes. There's just so many great Batman moments in this movie.
Let me go or we'll both die! Whatever it takes!
Oh yes, I forgot to mention that Joker has the world of the future set to blow, so Batman successfully brings the Joker down. Both of them are beat down, bleeding, out of breath, and Andrea returns to claim Joker for herself. Bruce tells her she has to get out of here, the place is about to blow. With that, the place begins going up in flames, and we get arguably the most iconic Joker laugh of all time from Mark Hamill. And the ending to this film is very depressing, actually. Not that the rest of the movie isn't, but we get Andrea on a boat, and a random guy walks up to her, and, you know, he's flirting a little, and he can tell she's not into it. He says, "Sorry, do you want to be alone?" And her response is, "I am." Very, very saddening on her part, and then it cuts to a shot of Batman on the rooftops of Gotham looking down on the city, looking depressed out of his mind, I should say. And he raises his head up, the bat signal comes on, and it's time for Batman to go to work. Very heartbreaking stuff. Very strong, emotional stuff. Just damn good writing and storytelling is what this movie is. It is a very, very excellent film. It doesn't get much better than this, and as a Batman fan, I am extremely grateful that this film exists because it is one of the best. It is in the upper echelon of Batman movies. It's a tale of love and tragedy, and in this story, tragedy trumps the love, which is kind of realistic. It's heartbreaking, but it is a pretty realistic view of how relationships pan out in the real world. There's no throwaway characters in this movie. Every character has a purpose. The only scene you see Commissioner Gordon in is him siding with Batman, saying he isn't going to hunt him down. I like the GCPD's incorporation into the movie since they think the Phantasm is Batman. They are hunting him, and it culminates in the amazing chase sequence that I touched on earlier. Alfred, much like he always is Bruce's anchor. He helps keep Bruce's head above water. He is the one that helps keep Batman, him and Gordon, people like that, Robin. They are the ones that keep Batman from falling into that abyss. If Batman did all this on his own, he probably would fall into the abyss. Andrea Beaumont / the Phantasm, a very strong original character created for this movie. She is a great love interest for Bruce. I think she's one of my favorites, and I haven't seen her be a love interest outside of this movie, so that says a whole lot about this movie and her character. The Joker. As I said earlier, I think this movie could be Mark Hamill's greatest performance as the Joker. He is on point all the way through from the moment he shows up to the end. And with all that, I think it's about time I give this the obvious letter grade, the letter grade it deserves, an A+. It is iconic for a reason. It's a memorable movie. It's just great start to finish. There are not many problems I have at all with the movie. The Phantasm's abilities is the only issue whatsoever I can point out in this film. And to me, it's not even really an issue, so I just absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorite Batman movies ever. Definitely top 10 if you're including live action and animated. It's just that damn good. It's many people's favorite for a reason. Let me know what you think about Mask of the Phantasm down in the comments below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. If you stuck around this long, you are awesome. I love you so much. Hope you all have a wonderful day. I will see you guys next time.
Hello, operator. I believe my party's been disconnected.